Thank you for tuning into this Yin Yoga class where we focus on release and creating space for the new year. So we're going to do some poses that twist and fold, and then also work into the hips a little bit so that we can get that energy release. Can't take on new stuff for the new year if we're kind of bogged down with old thoughts, right? Things physically within our body that we're still holding to, emotion, tension. So we'll get rid of all of that and create a nice space. So for the props tonight, if you have a bolster or something that you can make into a bolster, a long like tubular something that looks like this, a bed pillow with a blanket rolled around works great. Have 2 yoga blocks or maybe a dictionary and encyclopedia that you can use. I'm doing this, that will make more sense in a couple minutes here. And then a strap. So long sleeves shirt works great if you don't have a strap. And we're going to get back and start in child's pose today with a little variation that will help us work into the arms and the shoulders. So in this kneeling pose, I actually have this double mat that I'm on, but you could put a blanket on your mat. And then we're going to have 2 blocks in front of us. So to get my lower body in, my knees come wide on that extra padding, my toes are back behind me to touch. And then I'm going to set these blocks up or books up where there's, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 inches between them, enough spot where my forehead can come to the ground. And then they're just far enough where I can bring my elbows to them in my child's pose. And I like to bring my hands together, but you don't have to. And as you drop your head in between the blocks or the books, if your head doesn't make it to the ground, you could put another prop there so that it feels a little bit closer to you. And then your hands could stay lifted, but they might also fall behind you, either resting on your head or resting on your upper back. So in thinking about this pose, releasing tension, right? We're working into that upper back, the upper shoulders, that area that is always overworking, where we kind of always tense up and it just tries to hold and carry the stress from the day. So really focus, sending some sweet breath to that area of your body. As you stay and breathe in this pose, know that you should feel sensation, but it should feel like nice. It shouldn't feel strainful or sharp or shooting. And if the sensation is ever too much, you have the ability to come out to rest. I just ask that you honor the stillness. So even if you come out of the pose completely, maybe you lay down and be still, or be upright and be still. And then we can even practice that letting go right within the pose, right? Oh, the pose wasn't what I expected or wasn't what my body needed. And I can be fine in this moment, even under that circumstance. Sometimes those feelings of failure or not being enough just keep creeping in, right? They won't let go. And so you can choose what you put your mind to. Sometimes it seems like a far jump, maybe to go to gratitude when you're having a strong negative emotion. That's a great way to do it. That can be like a little light, but if that seems like too much, you could just focus on a physical sensation, maybe just your breath moving in and out of your body. Then we'll start to release from the pose. You might come up to tabletop after you let your hands down. And then you can set your blocks aside for now. I like to put them kind of above where my head will be, and then I clear the space out of the side. And then I'll make sure that, let's see, I have the bolster or the pillow, right, that we've created that will be within reach once I come to lay down on my abdomen, and then also the yoga strap. And we'll come down to baby croc. So baby croc is this nice restorative prone shape. You can take your legs a little bit wider, maybe jostle the hips side to side so you can just let the weight of your lower body settle into the mat. And then the elbows can come nice and wide as you stack the palms and rest the head. And know that if you can stay neutral, if you can stay with your breath, that there is tension and emotional stress that leaves our body on that exhale. If you can focus and just allow the tension to melt out of your body, know that there is this kind of give and receive with you and the earth and the universe, right? We just kind of focus our attention and our mind, and that really is our superpower. We'll take this into half frog, and we'll work the right leg first. So you might move a little bit over to the right side of your mat, or sorry, left side of your mat, and then take the right knee up and out to the side. And the foot might come far away from the body. And if the ankle is on the floor, you could put a little bit of padding there. But it's also okay if the right foot is tucked back towards the left leg. And we're going to come into a twisting variation here of our frog pose. So my right arm will extend and my right hand pushes down slightly. I'm going to take my left arm and thread it under. So I'm resting down my left arm, my left shoulder with the palm face up. And then I'm going to go ahead and rest my head, which could be your forehead or maybe your left temple. And I'll bring mine to a block here. But you could use your right forearm if that feels better. All right, we're gonna come into a cattail variation. So the left arm will stay threaded. I'm gonna bend the left leg so that the left foot lifts and my right hand will reach back for my left foot. Here's where the strap can come handy. If your right hand can't reach your left foot, you could make a little loop and lasso. And then as you hold your foot, you might lean back, or as you hold the strap, you might lean back, taking this into a twist. And it's okay if your right shoulder is hovering. It's okay if your right knee is hovering. If it feels uncomfortable though, you can always wedge props in between whatever is lifted in the ground. Folding poses and twisting poses like this one, in a physical sense, help to create space. It's like wringing out the wet sponge. Of course, sometimes there's a little sensation and comfortability. Just continue to breathe and use that breath as a way to know if it's too much, if you need to back off a little bit, or maybe find a way to go deeper. And for this last minute, if you'd like to go further, which you don't need to, right? There's this offering and there's no pressure to do more. We're kind of done with doing more just because we have to. Should feel like blossoming, but you might extend the right leg a little bit straighter, which would reach the foot out, right? And if you have a prop there, it might rest. If I had a second strap, I could use that too. Maybe you can hold your sock or your legging, but no need to hold if that doesn't bring joy to your pose. Right? Sometimes things are hard work and it feels good. And sometimes things are hard work and it's stifling or fruitless. And that's the stuff we can just let go of. And when you're ready to transition out of the pose, you can kind of let go of feet, strap, legging, whatever you have, and we'll roll back. Ooh, strap's getting caught in my hair. Into baby crocodile pose, returning to our abdomen, letting our legs be kind of wide, jostle the hips, and rest the head down. Right, and there's always that discomfort, there's always that challenge, there's always that working through and, tough decisions that we have to make. And sometimes I know for me, kind of before I had kids, yoga was maybe still is, right? It's a place of retreat. It's kind of like running away. And it can be a little bit like that. We create these perfect environments and situations where, there's not a lot of sensory going on, right? And we've got a lot of comfort. But it also, it can be that when we need to, but we can also use it as a practice just to kind of be with the discomfort, be with the challenging situation, and practice when to let go and when to stay. All right, we'll take that to the other side with frog. Left leg comes up and out to the side. And then we come into the twisting variation. The left palm will press so I can slide the right under. And then I'll rest my head down. Could be on the left forearm or use a prop. All right, we'll take this into our cattail twist, where the right leg bends and the left hand reaches back, or using the strap to do that around the right foot. And then as you come into the twist, you could roll to your right side a little bit more. Maybe let that chest open up a bit more towards the ceiling. So cattail for me has always been this pose where I feel like it symbolizes life is pulling you in a lot of different directions. Because it is, there's a lot going on, right? Especially when we add in this little extension with the left leg that you may or may not do. We've got so many different things we're working. And sometimes in life, it just seems like, what am I going to put down, right? But something's gotta give. So if you find in this pose that you're just being pulled and it's too much, right? Decide, right? Choose one of the variations to let go of or to soften, to be okay with that and find joy that you made the pose a little bit more enjoyable for yourself, right? And as you play with depth, maybe extending the left leg, try it on. If it doesn't feel like blooming, right, choose to let go of that. And when you're ready, start to soften all aspects of the pose so that you can come out. And one more time, we'll come back to baby crocodile. When you're trying to find that space in your mind, it's difficult, right? Choosing that thing to focus on. It could be gratitude, it could be a physical sensation or breath. Counting is also really powerful, right? Just counting your breath. When you're ready, you can push yourself up, hands and knees, and sit back. I know that counting is something that I practice at the very beginning of my meditation, almost like as a transition, right? Can help really focus my mind to a point where things settle down enough where I can kind of be with the openness and stillness, or focus on my breath, or something a little bit less intense than the counting. Okay, we're going to start into melting heart. So for melting heart, if you've never done it, or if the shoulders or the chest is tight, it can be really nice to lay the chest down on something like a bolster, opposed to the traditional variation of the pose where the chest kind of hangs. That gravitational pull can be something you kind of work into if you want to find some depth later in the pose. So I'll start with this variation where I kind of melt my heart into it. And then I'm kneeling on that mat again. And unlike child's pose, I'll keep my hips lifted right above my knees. And then as I extend my arms forward, right, it's almost like a higher and more pitched forward variation of child's pose because the hips are lifted. The arms will extend, and then you might want something to rest head on. So I could grab a little block or blanket to rest my forehead down, and then we'll stay here. And this pose is really all about letting go of the control, right? And that's that kind of stressful, tense, I have to control of the upper back, the shoulders, the neck, and yielding to this. I'm going to lead with my heart. I'm going to let my heart melt down. And even if you're using the bolster, you can still focus in on the areas of the front body, sending them breath. So as they expand, just kind of softening more into your upper back. If you need to find more intensity, the arms could be a little bit closer, maybe straighter, extended more. If you need to find more softness, you can bend the elbows and take the arms wider apart. If you want to go deeper in your melting heart, maybe you slide your bolster out of the way and you practice this pose where the forehead rests down and there's space in between your chest and the ground, and that will really intensify things in your shoulders. So if you need to, remember you can take the arms wider apart and bend the elbows more. If you want to go deeper, you might bring your chin to the mat. When you've had enough of this pose, you can bring your torso forward as you bend the elbows, bring your hips down to the mat, and we'll come into a brief little Sphinx pose as a counter shape where we support a lifted upper body by bending our elbows and pressing our forearms down into the mat. And then we'll come back up and we'll set up for our dragon poses. So we're going to do a low flying dragon pose. So what we'll do is we'll set up a little ramp in front of us, and that's what we'll use to lean ourselves into. So this ramp is going to go more on the left side of our mat, and I'm going to set it up, and you might, need more and stack your blocks a little bit higher, or maybe 2 blocks, or maybe you need less and your block is lower, right? So you decide how high your ramp needs to be. And then the far end of my bolster kind of sits on that ramp. And then as I come to the kneeling shape, I want to make sure that my left knee is touching that made bolster, right? So it's going to support my left thigh and my torso a little bit. And I'm going to step my right leg forward into this lunge, right? Now in this dragon lunge, we want the right knee to come a little bit forward of that right ankle, maybe not further than the toes, although if that feels comfortable, you can go for it. We want this left hip to come forward of the left knee. So I'm going to go ahead, lay my left thigh into that bolster, right? Use all the props you have so that the bolster meets you. And our hands, forearms, will come to rest on that bolster too, right? If you have a long torso, it might be that the hands come down to the ground, right? And that's okay. Just lay as much of your torso as you can. And then you can play with how close your right foot is towards you, right? If I have my right foot tucked in, kind of right closer to the midline of the body, that will give me a different angle into my hip release than if I angle my right foot out a little bit and I take the foot away from my body. So choose whatever one feels best. And see if you can create this setup where you can just, again, use your exhale to release and soften. And this is a great pose to kind of work into finding something where you can be with and you have that sensation, but it's not too much that it's really straining and stressful to the body. And it changes day to day, right? Just based on so many different factors. Kind of yielding to what is within our own psyche and body, in our environment, and finding a way to be in the pose. If there's a lot of physical sensation, right, try to use more props. Always err on the side of less sensation so that you can be with the pose and stillness for a bit more. But you also might be feeling a lot of emotional sensation as we work into the hips. And that's a big release channel for our bodies of right things, stress, emotion that we've been holding on to. So you might just need to, again, work with a mantra, work with a meditation, focus on breath or counting to help settle the mind in the pose too. You can stay as you are. You can come into a twisting pose variation where you angle your chest a little bit towards your right leg and your right hand could come to your right thigh. If at any point your body's calling to go deeper, you might bend the left knee so that the left foot lifts, and you could reach back for the foot or you could use your strap. Again, does it feel like blossoming? If it doesn't, let it go. When you're ready, if you haven't already, slowly work your way out of the pose. You can let go of that left foot. Palms will press back down into something so that you can bring the hips back over the left knee and step that right foot back. And then we'll set ourselves over to the other side of the mat. I'll put my ramp to the right. And then use as much time in between as you need to recover. And when you're ready, we'll step the left foot forward. That right knee is just in front of my bolster. And I go and I lay into the bolster, either bringing my chest down or my forearms down to the bolster, maybe the hands come to the ground. Play with the angle of that left foot. Right, noticing what feels good on the body today. The sensations of the body and the thoughts and the emotions have a relationship, right? We can have a thought which can trigger an emotion, which can trigger a sensation. Maybe it's a sensation that triggers a thought that triggers an emotion that then triggers a sensation that triggers a thought that triggers the emotion. And so there's a loop there, and it's not to say that will totally dissipate the emotion or the thought or the sensation, but if we can interrupt it, we can kind of lessen its intensity. And stay as you are, or come into that twisting variation. I'll angle my torso towards my left leg. My left hand could come to that thigh. And over the course of the next 2 minutes or so, you might play with bending the right knee, and either the left hand or the strap could catch it. And when you're ready, you can release. Send the hips back. Coming out of our lunges, and it can be really nice to take a little child's pose, closed knee variation, and you could do it in front of your little ramp that you've set up, which is nice for the closed knee variation, where there tends to be some rounding in the spine and a little compression of the front organs. Again, that's all ringing out, so there's a purpose to that compression, and try to breathe into it as much as you can. And then push ourselves up. And we have one last pose. We're going to take Baddha Konasana upright, a seated variation of butterfly. So it can be nice when we take these seated poses to sit onto something. And I really like a folded up blanket for this. Sometimes it can be a little bit much to sit up on a block. And you'll choose something so that when you come into the variation with your legs, your knees falling out, that you don't feel like you're rocking back forward, that you don't feel like you have to hold onto your legs to pull yourself forward. And I'm just noticing that my hips are a little bit tighter today. So I'm going to go up a little bit higher so that when I sit, my pelvic bowl is a little bit more neutral. Right? That felt much, much better coming into it being a little bit higher. Right, letting go of this expectation that my prop should be a certain way so that I can be at ease and enjoy my pose, right, and feel the sensation more into the hips opposed to stressing out my spine. And I'll have some other props handy around me just in case when I come into this fold, gravity is a bit much. Sometimes the gravity pulling down my legs with the weight of my torso is a bit much and the legs could go out. Or sometimes it's a little bit rough on my spine and I might put something in between my abdomen and the ground, or my hands. And then I'll just see where my body wants to go as far as that flexion in the hips. I like to keep my spine long first, just to kind of work into those two different target areas separately and feel into them. Once I feel how much flexion I have, then I can decide if I want to round and flex my spine as well as my hips. All right, that feels really intense coming all the way down to the ground. Maybe you rest your head or your arms into a prop. And the mantra for Baddha Konasana is I welcome change in my life with openness and flexibility. And right, acknowledging that there's a bravery aspect there, a trust, right? That things will work out in the end, the letting go of concepts that we had, and the, just self-love to forgive and move on from, any mistakes or mess ups that we might have thought we had. Smiling at the sensation in the pose, right? Knowing that there's supposed to be that sensation, there's supposed to be challenge, there's supposed to be uncomfortability, there's supposed to be mistakes, right? You can say all of that is according to the plan. Sometimes it just popcorns up. You don't know when it comes, but we know it comes. When you're ready, maybe take a few breaths and slowly press yourself upright. Once the spine is uprighted, you might help the legs come back together. Extend out in front of you. It might feel nice to move the feet and the ankles to bring the blood flow back in. And the seated windshield wiper can always feel nice, where you kind of lean back and lift the heart, which can counter the fold. And then you can move the hips in this windshield wiper, where we let the knees come side to side. One leg goes external rotation, the other internal. That can feel nice after butterfly. And then we're going to come to a little seated meditation before we end. You could sit in hero's pose on a block. You could sit cross-legged. I think I'm going to go with hero's pose. Remember, get that comfortable seat so that we're not having to effort too much, and it can really be about the mental aspect of the meditation opposed to the shape. I'm gonna sit in this hero's pose variation on a block. And then once you have the lower body figured out, decide if the palms will rest down, or I've been liking this facing up, kind of open to receive. You could do a mudra, wisdom mudra, thumb to pointer, or patience mudra, middle finger to thumb. And then just come to your breath. Know that there's no doing it wrong. Everything is okay. And then the mantra that I've chose to focus on today, maybe you will too, is this mantra for the twisting poses, which is to all that was, thank you. To all that is or will be, yes. To all that was, thank you. To all that will be, yes. When you're ready to release your meditation, you can open your eyes if they're closed. Do some circles with your wrists. Move your shoulders up, back, and down. We'll close class, bringing hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra. Right, so much gratitude for all that we have, for all that is. And take a deep breath in. Exhale out. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me. And I hope you have a wonderful new year and take care. Thank you.